Hey, you, do me a favor, subscribe to this channel.
How's it? Yeah. So my name's Mark, and I've got a project band called the Fismits, which has been going since about 2017 or so. And yeah, do original stuff, sort of in the alternative rock space, a vibe. That's about it. That's the bullet summary.
Tell me a little bit about the name. It's a very specific name, and it kind of draws from like other name that's already like a big name in the industry. How did you come up with the name? And do you ever get people that like ask you what is the the ties to like something like the Misfits?
I get it all the time. It's usually the it's usually the first question. I mean, it comes from a long. It's a long journey of sort of failed bands, so I was in some really good bands, before 2017, that kind of were together for 6 months or together a year, and then they would just sort of for no reason self implode. I think people lost their impetus, so you would get like the drummer just not arriving to practice, and then you know no excuses, and then the 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 lead singer would stop arriving at practices with no excuses. And so, like, after this, it was myself, my keyboardist, well, the keyboardist from the band, and the bass player from the band looking at each other. And on a Saturday afternoon, and my keyboardist Tsepo said to me, "Mark, let's just do your songs and you sing the bloody things." So I said, "We're just a bloody bunch of misfits that nobody wants to jam with." And then when we needed a band name, I took Misfits, and it was something we did in the 90s when I was at university. We would swap letters around of words just for, I don't know, for just being stupid. So I proposed the name Fismits and a few others, and that was the one everybody went for. So it's it's stuck. So it's definitely that. It's a play on a bunch of buggers that nobody wants to form a band with.
So do you guys ever get mistaken for a tribute band?
No, not at all, actually, because I think, I mean, the Misfits is a very specific band. You either know them because you're in that sort of punk vibe, and a lot of people aren't into that kind of thing. The people on the street, or the people that would work with me, or whatever the case may be. So it's more like if you had to Google Fismits, Google autocorrects it to Misfits. So that's more like, okay, I'm now been thinking this year, okay, how do I solve that problem? Do I do we have to like really step up our tagging or something so that Google doesn't correct it, or do I log a call with Google saying, guys, this, this is it? But no, we don't get caught as a tribute band. I haven't had that yet.
I can imagine that's a little bit of a PR nightmare because today's music industry is all about relevant keywords and right hashtags and stuff. So yeah, it's quite interesting. Um, Falling Joy revisits music of about 3 decades. Can you tell me about the emotional attachment to the songs and how visiting the songs now, um, how have they developed? How have they changed from what it originally was?
So I mean, the Falling Joy EP was, or is, a sort of a nod to my early band, my first band that I was at university, called the Mind Theatre, and Bruce, our lead singer and chief sort of songwriter, had we'd written many tracks. I mean, and we'd done a whole bunch of demos and things, but these tracks hadn't, in my opinion, been finished off properly or done correctly, and I felt that they were all very strong tracks. And when I was in these other bands and things like that, after that band disbanded, I would always pull one or two of the Mind Theatre songs into the set to fill the set as we were developing our own sound, for lack of a better word. And then those songs would evolve with us, and we would not drop some of them out the set. So they became part of what we played. I started working on recordings of them, and then I had one or two that were starting to sound great. I decided, okay, what do I do? Do I create an EP, or do we wait for an album, or do we just drop a single? And then I thought to myself, no, let's take the 4 Bruce songs and let's package them as an EP called Falling Joy. I mean, I suppose there's an emotional connection. I've always liked these songs, and I felt they needed to be put out there. They couldn't just die on a cassette somewhere in my cupboard, kind of thing.
If you had to play the final versions of the EP to a younger Mark, how do you think he would have received the EP?
Oh, I think he'd be quite impressed. I mean, it's a bit difficult thing. I mean, Bruce wasn't involved, but once I'd finished with the songs to a point of where I knew they were 99% there, the mixes were pretty much spot on. I kind of then got hold of Bruce and said to him, "Hey, I've done this thing. What do you think?" kind of thing. And he was like super impressed. So I don't think I think I would have been impressed then. I'm still impressed now. I still enjoy the sound and stuff we've come up with. I think it's definitely moved. It's not the same as what it was in 1997. I wouldn't want to score myself, but I'd give myself a decent score.
How would you describe the dynamics between you and Bruce in 2026 versus, in, yeah, 99, you said 96, right? Yeah, 96.
Yeah, somewhere there. Well, it's different. I mean, now we're talking about guys living in different countries. We communicate over WhatsApp. We get excited. You get excited, but we can't do anything about the excitement. It's very disconnected. So and I think, he respects me for what I've done to his songs in terms of like, I'm keeping them alive. He's not doing too much musically, you know what I'm saying? So he's not gonna, I know his personality, he's not gonna suddenly want to interject himself. Whereas back in the 90s, we were a typical band. We were living in the same apartment. We were going to work and then coming back and writing songs and gigging on the weekend, and working on those songs day and night, kind of thing. So it was a different engagement. We got, at the moment, there's still that great respect and that great friendship, but it's not a collaboration anymore. This is more my view on that.
Taking it from a point of view of an old school musician in a very developing industry, I mean, like, technology has gone to the next level. Um, Digital, pedals have taken over things like amps, and like everything just modernized.
Yeah.
Like most bands don't even do the efforts to record drums anymore. How do you feel about modern techniques of making music, of recording music, and introducing it into a live setting versus the old school type of way with the amps and the old analog systems and things?
I think it's definitely changed things. It's made things fantastically easier in one aspect. In other words, I can sit on my MacBook, the same MacBook that I'm talking to you through this thing through, and I can work with and program the drums, and I can play with various guitar sounds, and there is no limit to what your creativity can achieve. And that's what's cool. So that is a bonus. What I loved about the early 90s was the slight difference where we were working as a collaboration, and in the rehearsal room you were developing your chops on the song. So, and then when you felt the song was there and maybe you got a bit of an audience response and that sort of stuff, you would then scrape your bucks together and then book your day in the studio, and you would literally arrive rehearsed, and there was no creative time in the studio because there was no budget for it. So that has an energy about it. Did it have a gloss or a production about it? No. So that's the difference, because there was no budget associated with
You said something interesting there. So, like you mentioned, in the early days, studios were expensive. So
it. Yeah, yeah,
you kind of had to round up everything and get things done.
yeah, absolutely.
Where now you are a songwriter, producer, sitting in the comfort of your home, or you know, I know a lot of guys, their studios are not necessarily in their homes; they're like maybe at another place. But most musicians nowadays, it's a home studio. So now a challenge comes in where I think, especially modern musicians, have this issue where they don't know when the song is done. You know, because now you have too much time.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
no one's pushing you. They're like, "Hey, deadline, come on." So you're just like maybe overproducing. How do you feel about that? And when do you, as a musician slash producer, know when to stop?
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. In terms of, I quote Neil Young. I follow the song, and I have a specific. I don't want to call it a process or a workflow, because it's really, it's not worthy of anybody uh, copying my workflow, right? So I'll work in the studio, and then I will not listen to anything probably for about 2 days. And then what I'll do is I will, that evening I would have probably bounced the MP3 or whatever the case may be, a rough mix or whatever my ideas were that I was doing, and then I will put it into my Google Drive or something like that. And then 2 days later or 3 days later, on the way to work, or on my way to drop my kid off at school or something like that, or when I'm getting in the car and I'm now completely distracted, I've almost forgotten about what I've done. The high of what I thought was sounding great at 11 o'clock at night on a Tuesday, it's now Friday morning. I now put the song on, and I'm sitting in traffic, and I'm quite distracted or something like that, and I've got rush hour traffic, and somehow avoiding a pothole in front of me, the normal stuff. And then when the song comes on, it's a great edit, because the stuff, I'll immediately hear, okay, I'm bored, or I don't like what I'm hearing, or the vocal's flat, or I'll hear it in a different context, not in the hype of,
Excitement.
yeah, of the adrenaline of what I was doing that night. Is, you hope, if it reignites some of that, I'll go, hang on, that actually is a great line. Or actually, that sounds even better than I remember. Then I know I'm onto something. It's more about I think the time shifts, right? So I do something, and then I let it rest, because there's no bass player to tell me my guitar line sucks, right? Or, you know what I'm saying? It's that kind of, there's no tension or conflict, so that's what I need to, so I have to create that sense of conflict. And I think that works for me. And then once I'm happy with something, then I will bounce that off other people and ask them for. I've got a couple of friends and that sort of stuff who in the music industry who have achieved some things, and then I'll pass it by them and say, what do you think of this kind of thing? But then I'm already probably 80% there. I'm really just checking if I'm on the right path. But that's kind of how I go. But it's the same amount of time. I think if you took the rehearsal time of what we did in the 90s, and how often we reversed. I mean, you might be playing a song for 6-7 months before you actually get into the studio. Whereas I might be recording an idea today, but I might only actually start the mix in 6 months or a year from now.
So for us, we changed it a bit um, from our perspective. So when I started this band, I kind of also did a very similar thing. Solo artist, just want to make music, like I'm a musician. So I recorded a few songs, sent it to a nice. Well, I'm not a mixing engineer or a producer of any kind. So I sent it to a mixing engineer. He mixed it, he mastered it, he sent it back. I released the songs, and I was like, okay, this is cool. Then I started the band, and then everyone had to kind of learn these songs.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
But then there was some unpractical things happening in the music, because I had like they're like heavy guitar riffs over vocal lines, and it's all good and well if you are a guitarist and a vocalist, but I was both.
Yeah, yeah.
So then I realized that this is humanly impossible. This is not gonna happen live. So we changed it where now we record a demo, version one, then we take that demo, we go take it to the rehearsal space, and then we take it to stage, and then we see how people kind of react to the song, and then we re-record what we've learned. So that's kind of the new process we are following, and it's tough. I know you're gigging now and things like that, but have you ever like when writing a song and you recorded it and now you take it to the stage, when you're there, you think about it like, yo, maybe I should have done this different.
Yeah, I think there's definitely that. I mean, I've got the same problem. I mean, I'm doing vocals, and then there's a couple of lines on the guitar, and I'm going like, "Ooh, I'm going to have to come up with a different vibe live because I can't do that and play. It's physically not possible, and I don't have time to find another guitarist. And do I want to find another guitarist? Like we're traditionally a three-piece with some keyboards every now and again, so it's like, so I've got no problem. I've like even now rehearsing for our gig coming up for the EP launch. I mean, it's a new drummer, it's an old bass player because my current bass player can't do the gig because he's on holiday. So it is, and the two bass players play completely differently, but they're both good friends of mine, and I'd rather have them on stage with me than not. So some of the arrangements are changing, some of the parts are going to change because it's just the recording. Fismits evolved. Fismits was a three-piece live band in 2017. By the time we got to 2020, it was me. You know, for all the factors that everybody complains about. Trying to get that going again as a three piece, or getting the band going again, was taking. I mean, you'll attest to this. To try get three people in a room on a Saturday afternoon, it takes an amount nobody can understand. Especially if those people all have their own lives with their own families and their own jobs and their responsibilities, and their kids are going to school and playing, whatever the case may be. To find that slither of time when you can put three people into a room together. I mean, if you've got a five-piece band, you must die. like, you know, so it's but the creative juices in you still flow. So you've I've still got to try and get this stuff out of me, otherwise my wife's gonna hate me, right? So it's like right. So I for her own good, I need to spend some time in the studio, but I also need to balance that. So it's like the creative. So I'm writing songs, I'm doing productions, I'm coming up with guess. Sorry guys, on the WhatsApp group, here's a new song. I'm releasing it next week. We haven't had a band practice in 2 years, but like, let me know if you're down with this, and then they'll go, no, that sounds cool, release it. Right. So it's, yeah, it's I think I've learned to roll with the punches. When I was 20 something, I would force the issue. I would fire a musician if he couldn't commit to going to Grahamstown Festival, for instance. And that ultimately led to the demise of a really good band, in my opinion. I mean, whether it would have lasted or not is actually an irrelevant question. It's just like I look back at it and I go, well, maybe I should have just chilled out.
It's very tough. Being in a very active band myself, we lost our bassist, and we were having a chat about it the other day. We're auditioning new bassists at the moment, and I was sitting with the one guitarist and we were talking about it. He's like, because we've been running Backtrack, Embrace Modern Music and all that, just for bass. And he says, is this the worst thing? It's not one more guy that you kind of have to like align all the dates with. And it's not one more guy that you have to pay for a room when we're on tour. And it's not one more guy that's sitting in a seat, while you're driving to, like we were in Bloemfontein the past weekend. And I was like, yeah, actually, it kind of makes sense. I just wish it wasn't the bassist, because having a bassist on stage is, you know,
Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah.
So I think music comes with a lot of challenges. Now you are playing a show the 26th of June at Railways Cafe in Pretoria. Great venue, by the way. I'm a very big fan. Tell me about that. Tell me about the process and the marketing strategy and things like that.
I've kind of outsourced the marketing strategy a bit to somebody else. Um, because I was looking to start a few gigs because I don't like the idea of just being a studio project of my own. I do enjoy the collaboration, and I miss the band. Although it's a lot of effort, I miss getting the three guys or the four guys in a room on a Saturday or whenever it is, and the energy that just translates. And then ultimately, it's pointless if you're a painter. You're not going to paint paintings and then put them in your cupboard, right? You have to put them on a wall or sell them. So it's another aspect of putting it in iTunes or whatever it is, right? It's if you don't play live, yeah, I don't know. I like it. I enjoy it. So, but so I got hold of a guy and who was doing some gigs for bands that are sort of in the same space as us, like Barcode Bandits and these guys. And I said, "Who's doing your gigs?" We started chatting, and then he phoned me up and said, "Hey, on the day you launch your EP, railways are open. Do you want to do it?" And I said, "Okay, hell yeah!" But I don't have a bass player, and I don't have a drummer. So, so he said, "I'll solve the drummer problem for you. Give me 2 days." So he found me a drummer who's actually working out, believe it or not. So it's quite cool. I also know I can't do everything. I can't control the creative. I've controlled the music to a degree for the recording. For the band, we're going to sound slightly different because you obviously can't emulate, three guitars, overdubs, and a string part if there is one, or an organ part, or whatever the case may be. So it's going to be slightly rawer, and and we're playing with Bargoat Bandits and later Alligator, so it's going to be a vibe. So it's not just solely us, although it is our EP launch, but it's also just a cool vibe to hang out with some mates and have a jaw. So so it's really a collaboration between the three bands as to what we're charging at the door, what the poster looked like, and all that sort of stuff. They keep trying to give me more say, and then I say, okay, I like this, let's call it this, or whatever the case may be. But it's not like I have a definitive plan. It's more like what did you call it? It's more like a group compromise. Like, let's just go and play to some of our mates on a Friday night.
Yeah, no, Barcode Bandits, I've interviewed them myself. It's a good band to collaborate with, especially in the rock, like rock, kind of rock blues type of era. Well, not era, but like genre of music. How do you feel about the streaming platforms and things like Spotify? Um,
I think you're so far advanced relative to me. I mean, I've been putting this stuff out, not in vast quantities, but I battle. I mean, Devo, that does my PR for me. I mean, he understands it way better than I do. And it is energy sapping again. It's like I'm not sure where to spend the energy and how to convert it to streams. That's where I've I'm absolutely clueless. Like, I've done so many interviews. We've got playlisting on so many sort of radio stations and things like that. People are liking the songs. Not people that I know. I ignore friends and family, like their opinions, right? But there's UK stations playing us. There's American stations playing us. People that, like, on this EP that I haven't had interviews with, I'm now getting interviews with them, and I can tell by the way they're talking to us that they're actually genuine interested. I can tell by the second and the third and the fourth plays on the stations that it's there, but it's not translating to more streams. You know, it's not. It's. I mean, I would have given my left arm for 80 streams on any of the previous stuff, 80,000 streams, right? But this EP is doing a lot better than any of our previous stuff, but it's nowhere. You know, we're talking about single digit dollars. We're not talking about hundreds of dollars. Not even, not even cracking the 1,000. Like, it's ridiculous.
So thank you so much for your time. It was a great interview. I love chatting to you.
Cool, and a pleasure.
Until next time, I've been Hardman.